I still remember that night like it's burned into the back of my mind. Not because of what I was about to do in Miami, but because of what happened before I could even get there. I'd been living undercover for a year and a half, building a case against one of the slickest human trafficking rings to ever run through the East Coast. Every day had been a grind, pretending to be someone I wasn't, keeping my head down, watching my back. That night, I was finally supposed to fly down to Miami to help pull the trigger on the operation. 43 people were going to be rescued, 7 traffickers taken down. I'd been counting the hours. So there I was sitting in a quiet corner at Gate 18 in Baltimore's airport wearing my charcoal suit that still looked crisp even after 12 hours on my feet. My government-issued briefcase sat right next to me. To anyone passing by, I probably looked like some tired businessman catching a late flight, and that was exactly the point. I glanced at my watch standard issue for federal agents. Nothing flashy, but it had a certain look to it if you knew what to look for. Boarding would start in 20 minutes. I pulled out my phone, double-checking the final instructions from my team in Miami. That's when I noticed a man across from me staring a little too long. Then his wife leaned in, whispered something, and she started looking too. That feeling, you know, the one when your presence alone is a question to people. It hit me in the gut. I tried to ignore it. I couldn't afford any distractions. But the air shifted. My instincts told me someone was coming my way. He walked with that "I own this place" kind of stride. White guy, mid-40s, buzz cut in a local police uniform. The name tag read S. Hartman. I'd later learn he'd been pulling extra shifts at the airport for a few months. 14 years on the force, and according to him, he'd developed a knack for spotting suspicious travelers. Apparently that night, the suspicious traveler was me. He stopped right in front of me, just close enough to be in my space, and said loud enough for everyone in earshot to hear, "Evening, sir. I'm gonna need to see some identification." I looked up from my phone. "Is there a problem, officer?" "That depends," he said, tilting his chin toward my wrist. "Nice watch. You don't look like you can afford it. Want to prove you didn't steal it?" It got quiet. Too quiet. I could feel the eyes on me, the phone's already being lifted. I swallowed the heat rising in my chest. I dealt with far worse armed cartel guards, corrupt foreign cops, but this was different. This was home soil, and the mission was too close to risk blowing my cover. "I'm reaching for my wallet," I said slowly, moving my hand, making sure the words carried for the cameras. Hartman's hand twitched toward his holster. That told me everything about the kind of cop he was. This wasn't about security. This was about making a point. My fingers brushed past my federal badge, my ticket to ending this whole charade, but I stopped. If I pulled that out, Miami was done. The traffickers would scatter and 43 people would stay in cages. So I pulled out my regular wallet and handed him my driver's license. He snatched it, read my name out loud, Evan Miles, so everyone could hear. "Says here you live in D.C. What's your business in Miami?" "I'm traveling for work," I said, keeping my voice level. "What kind of work?" "I'm a federal contractor." True in a way, just not the kind he was thinking. He smirked. "Convenient answer. Stand up. Hands where I can see them." Someone in the crowd gasped. A teenage girl muttered, "He didn't do anything." I stood slow, deliberate, keeping my hands visible. I was taller than him, but I kept my posture neutral. "Turn around, hands behind your back," he ordered, already reaching for his cuffs. "Officer, I haven't committed a crime. You have no legal authority to detain me." He grabbed my wrist and wrenched it upward hard. Pain shot through my shoulder. The old me, the one from before the bureau, wanted to end this in seconds. I could have put him on the ground before anyone blinked. But every ounce of training screamed, "Not here, not now." He started patting me down, his hand sliding toward the inside of my jacket. And that's when he found it. "What's this?" he muttered, pulling out my leather credential case. He opened it, his face drained. The gold FBI badge glinted under the gate's fluorescent lights. Everything froze. The crowd leaned in. Airport security was hustling over now, their steps quick. I turned slowly to face him. Officer Hartman, I think we need to talk. His grip loosened. I I didn't know what my voice stayed calm, but there was an edge in it now. That you can't assault people based on their skin color, that you have no jurisdiction here, or that what you just did is a federal civil rights violation. A woman in a security supervisor's uniform stepped in. What's going on here? I gestured to the badge still in his trembling hands. Special Agent Evan Miles, FBI. This officer just detained and assaulted me without cause, based solely on racial profiling. Her eyes hardened. Are you injured? Before I could answer, a woman stepped forward from the crowd, flashing her hospital ID. I'm Dr. Anita Brooks. I witnessed everything. That restraint was intentionally painful. May I examine you? She checked my wrist and shoulder, speaking loud enough for the phone still filming. Redness and swelling consistent with excessive force. This wasn't standard procedure, it was meant to hurt. Hartman's face went pale. I told the supervisor I want this incident fully documented. I want copies of all surveillance footage. People started coming forward offering their videos, different angles, different moments. Every piece of this was now evidence. Hartman tried one last time. Agent Miles, please. Can we handle this quietly? I've got a family. I looked him in the eye. I'm sorry you have a family, because now they'll see exactly what kind of cop you are. When my plane finally took off, I knew Miami would have to wait. The mission was delayed but not dead. And this was just the beginning. Back in D.C., my supervisor, Naomi Blake, dug into Hartman's record. What she found was ugly complaints of excessive force racial profiling, lawsuits the city had quietly settled, and whispers from inside the department that he wasn't acting alone. That's when Detective Carla Ruiz from Internal Affairs came forward. She'd been keeping files for years, too scared to hand them over until now. It turned out Hartman was part of a crew. 12 officers, 6 supervisors, even 2 deputy chiefs running their own little criminal empire from inside the department. Evidence tampering, intimidation, even suspicious deaths of people who'd filed complaints. And the kicker, they'd been taking protection, money from drug and human trafficking networks. The same kind of scum I'd been chasing in Miami. The investigation exploded. We went from looking at one racist cop to building a RICO case against an entire network. Search warrants flew, bank accounts got seized, officers started flipping on each other to save themselves. 6 months later, the trial began. Biggest police corruption case in federal court history. When I took the stand, the defense tried to make it sound like I provoked Hartman. I told the jury exactly what he'd said about my watch. Then I asked, what legitimate security purpose does that serve, other than racial humiliation? They had no answer. Witness after witness came forward. Construction workers, teachers, small business owners, people Hartman and his crew had terrorized for years. Their stories were the same, targeted because of how they looked punished, for standing up for themselves, silenced by threats. Dr. Brooks showed the jury the photos of my injuries. Forensic accountants laid out the stolen money. And when we revealed the ties to international trafficking, the room went still. This wasn't just about bad cops. This was about a network that had been actively sabotaging federal cases and putting lives in danger. Hartman sat there smaller than I had ever seen him. He'd already agreed to cooperate for a lighter sentence, but nothing could erase what he'd done or what he'd helped cover up. In the end, the convictions came down hard. Long sentences, assets seized, careers over. The department put under federal oversight. And me, I went back to Miami. We still got the traffickers. We still got the victims home. But I've thought about that night a lot since then, about how quickly a man with a badge can turn a quiet gate at an airport into a stage for his prejudice, and how sometimes that's all it takes to pull down an entire corrupt empire. So now I've got a question for you. You've heard my story. You've seen how deep this went. Tell me what's worse, the one officer who acts on his prejudice, or the whole system that protects him while he does it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm listening.